Are you thinking of buying a property in Calgary? Well, one wrong move could cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and most buyers have no idea until it's too late. I've seen buyers lose out on deposits, overpay in bidding wars, and be stuck with massive repair bills just due to simple common mistakes. And in this video, I'll let you know my thoughts on what are the most common and costly mistakes when buying a property in Calgary so that you don't make the same ones. Let's get into it. All right, let's get into it. And so what I did is I went through all my past transactions, and when you've been licensed for a while, issues always come up in real estate. You're dealing with people and things don't always go as planned. And some of these issues can be very costly. So what I did is I wrote them all down and I'll go through them here, kind of in point form to make it so the video is not super long. And the first one here, let's talk about some financing issues. And some of these are direct, which can be very costly, and some of these are indirect as well. And the first one would be getting a mortgage pre-approval. Now, this one's not like super costly in the sense that you're not wasting a lot of money, but it's indirect in that you're wasting a lot of your time. You could legit see 20 properties, drive around the city, mess around with deposits and home inspections just to find out that the transaction is not going to proceed, and you wasted all that time and my time as well. So it's very important to get a mortgage pre-approval. I think this is the first step for anybody thinking of buying or selling, just to make sure all your ducks are in a row and that you can actually do what you want to do. And the next point is the mortgage payout penalty. And ideally you want to deal with a mortgage broker versus the bank. I find they're easier to deal with, and find a good one, someone that puts your interests above their own. And with these penalties, they can be quite substantial. I can recall back from, like, say 2015 to 2020, there were a lot of homeowners who bought in, say, 2014 during the boom period. And a lot of them wanted to sell, but they couldn't. Once you factor in the real estate commissions and these massive bank payout penalties, the numbers just didn't make sense. And to break those contracts can be quite costly. So you want to make sure that you find a good mortgage broker and just ask them what the penalties are, and they can put you into better products than just going into the bank. So that's my recommendation, is deal with a good mortgage broker and be sure to be mindful of the bank payout penalty. And point number 3, another reason why you want to deal with a good mortgage broker is the interest rates. Maybe you can find a better rate. The difference between like a 3.5% rate or like 4.2 is massive over a 5-year term. So again, you want to find a good mortgage broker that puts your interests above their own, because the rates can be very costly. And point number 4 is assuming that you need to have 20% down. No, this is quite common, and I get this. A lot of people think that they have to have 20% down, otherwise it won't work. Now, this is kind of like an indirect cost. If you are waiting that long to save up the money while the properties are increasing in value, that's very costly. So you could put down like 5, 10, 15% down versus 20. And there's even an option called the flex down mortgage, which is like zero down, but we're using a line of credit as the down payment. To be approved for this, you have to have good credit and good employment. And it could be an option for people to get into the market who have, stable employment, good credit, without the down payment quite saved up yet. Point number 6, when you're going through the buying process, once you have a firm approval, I would not be financing anything or making any large expenses. If you finance like a car, for example, you could lose the transaction. The bank might pull your file again before possession just to make sure everything is still correct. And they can pull financing, and it's not just as simple as you losing the transaction. Maybe the seller bought something else and they're relying on the funds to make that transaction work, and now they can't close, and now you're into a lawsuit. So these can be quite costly. So make sure that you don't finance anything before you move in or make any large payments. You just want to be very cautious until you take ownership of the property. And the next section, let's talk about location. And a big thing I see quite often is when people don't put enough emphasis on the neighborhood and they get kind of swayed by the nice shiny object. So I think the neighborhood is the most important thing, and you want to factor in like the work commute time, the amenities, the schools, versus just having a brand new property in the wrong neighborhood. Next point is buying a property that's too far away from the things that you do. You don't want to buy a property out in the boonies if your lifestyle doesn't kind of match that location. My mom is a classic example. She loves to move. Every couple of years, she seems to be moving somewhere, and she'll move to a place like Carbon, Alberta. Then she'll sell it because it's too far away. Then she'll come back to Strathmore, and she's there for a couple of years. Then she goes to Drumheller, and now she's thinking of selling again because it's tough to get to the Calgary airport or the hospitals. The winter driving from Drumheller to Calgary is very sketchy. So you just have to make sure, if you are moving somewhere far away, that it's actually what you want, and you're not going to be annoyed when you have to do things that require a long commute. Next point is buying a home with a bad layout. Now, you'd think this would be common sense. But it does happen, especially when the market gets overheated, like we've seen here in Calgary, where people are desperately trying to find properties and they just like give up and take a home with a very bad layout. This can be very costly because when the market returns to normal, it can be extremely difficult to actually sell it. And you might have to give it away at a huge discount in order to make that happen, or wait for the market to get overheated again, but you can't really count on that. So if the property has a bad layout, I would probably just move on because they can be tough to sell in the future. And the next point, which is quite similar to the last one, is ignoring resale value. And this comes in many ways. For example, buying a home next to a very busy road, buying a ground floor condo, a below grade condo, they're tough to sell. Buying in front of a school or like a bus stop, issues like that. And for example, I had this seller back in like 2018 or 2019. I think it was in Cedar Brae. And they were selling their home because they were scared of the ring road construction being built right behind their home. But this could have been avoided if they had done their homework. Like this highway was in the works for a very long time. They just didn't do their homework or they didn't think it was going to happen. But you just have to be mindful of the resale value in the future. And the next point is buying a home that's too big for you. Now, with a bigger home, you might have larger property taxes, higher utility bills, might be hard to clean it up, and that might get to you over time. So make sure that you're not buying a home that's just too big for you. Next point is buying a home without a garage. Now, this can be costly because we do get hit with hailstorms and you might get car damage. Your insurance might not cover it, and it might cause you to sell the property and buy something else with a garage. And just the act of selling a property, the moving expenses, it can be costly. So if you are relocating to Calgary from somewhere else, we do have long winters and we do get hailstorms in the summertime. So you're almost always better off in Calgary to have a garage than not have one. So if you are budgeting, I think it's worthwhile to spend a little bit more to have a garage than not have one. Just my opinion. Next point is focusing only on the finishes, the cosmetic features of the property, versus looking at the mechanical room, like the structural, the mechanical, electrical, the windows, the foundation. Those are more important than the actual cosmetic stuff, which can be changed quite easy compared to everything else. I've seen properties that have been like flipped and they look nice from the MLS. They have nice photos and people almost buy them from my experience until they look closer and realize like the windows are shot, the furnace is old, there's some cracks in the foundation, but it has like a nice new kitchen, new bath. So don't be swayed by the cosmetic features. You have to do a real, thorough analysis and look at the guts of the property. And the next point is understanding the inclusions and the exclusions. So the inclusions are like simple things like fridge, dishwasher, window coverings. They are staying with the property, washer and dryer. And sometimes there are exclusions. Maybe like the washer and dryer are not included. So you have to make sure that you understand the contract and have a good agent, because this is part of the agent's job, is to put in there what's included, what's not included. But sometimes, like I've heard examples of it was not a for sale by owner. It was like the opposite. It was a buyer who wanted to be self-represented. You don't see that quite often. And they bought a property, I think it was in Bearspaw, with really nice high-end appliances, but they didn't put any of the appliances in the contract. And when they moved into the property, there was nothing there, and this buyer was furious. Now, it wasn't my buyer or my seller. I just heard this from an office meeting. So you just have to be mindful of what's included and what's not included in the contract. And the next section, let's talk about some legal issues. And the first one being not getting title insurance, I think, is a bit of a mistake. I think title insurance is actually quite affordable, and it does protect you. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but title insurance kind of protects your ownership of the property, like the title, and some of the issues that can pop up with like the real property report. So I think it's a mistake not to get it. I also think it's a mistake not to do your own due diligence when it comes to the contracts, especially nowadays with electronic signatures. I find that a lot of sellers or buyers don't really read them anymore. They just like click and they sign everything. So I do think it's good to have a look over it, read it over, and talk to your agent about it to make sure that you know what you're signing. It can't hurt. And let's talk about the real property report again. In these overheated markets, you'll see terms like buyer to accept the real property report from 2005 or whatever. This can be a problem sometimes because there could be issues that you're taking on. Maybe they built the garage over a utility right-of-way and it has to be demolished, and you're the one who's on the hook for that if you accept a term like this. And again, this is where title insurance comes in, because if you don't know about these issues and you get the plan, it would protect you from issues like this. So another good reason why you should get title insurance, and to be mindful of what you're signing, and to have a good look at the real property report to make sure that it's still compliant. So you have to know what you're signing, and this applies to sellers as well. I find in the purchase contract, the section about the real property report, many people just kind of glaze over it and sign off. Sure, we'll get you a new report, no problem at all. But when it comes time to actually getting it stamped and compliant, some issues can pop up. And I had one where the master bedroom deck had to be demolished because it wasn't built properly. And the seller couldn't give a compliant RPR, and they didn't want to pay for it. So the buyer and the seller were fighting about this. And so there's issues like this that can pop up. So make sure that you know what you're signing, because it can be costly if you don't. And the next point is dealing with for sale by owners. Now, I think this is a red flag. There are just too many issues. Like, to know what you're doing in real estate, I think you need to have sold like 100 properties. It's like everything else in the world. You need to have experience. I don't trust that they have enough experience to do the job correctly. Are they disclosing everything? Do they know what to do step by step? And I just find there's too many red flags for me. I would shy away from these properties. I don't think it's worth the risk. And the next section, let's talk about inspections. So I would say for 95% of the buyers out there, they should do a home inspection. There's 5%, maybe more, that are like very qualified. They could be tradesmen or very experienced with home building. For them, that's okay. But for the rest of the public, I would definitely do a home inspection. If you don't and there are major issues, then you've taken them on because you've waived that in the contract. It's now your responsibility. And for most people, it's probably not worth the headache. So always get a home inspection. It takes 2 hours. It costs around $500, and it does protect you. You'd be surprised at how many people will actually bypass this, especially in our overheated markets. And I don't think it's worth the risk for most people. And with home inspections, I would hire a professional. They have all these cool gadgets. They have those moisture meters. They've got the mold spore counter. Sometimes they'll even do like the sewer scopes. So they do like fancy things like that. Whereas I see some other inspections where, the person brings their uncle and they do like a once over and they check like the dishwasher and like the light switches. So you want to hire a professional that does everything: mechanical, structural, electrical. And the same thing goes for condos. If you're buying a condo, you definitely want to do a condo review because issues do pop up. You could buy the property and there could be a special assessment just a few months later for like the roofing, the siding, the garage, all sorts of different issues. So if you are buying a condo and you don't do a review, you could be buying it and inheriting all these problems and the costs associated with them. So you gotta be careful. And the next section, let's talk about some timing mistakes. Now, the past few years in Calgary, we were in like a red hot, crazy seller's market. Thankfully, this is coming to an end and it's a bit more balanced. But for example, I had this buyer looking for a townhouse like in the south part of Calgary. And basically, there was nothing for sale. There was no inventory. We'd see a home come on the market. We'd go rush to see it, write an offer, and we lost out. And we did this like 10 to 15 times in a row. It was crazy. And my advice to him was just wait. Wait for the summer market. Wait for the fall or the winter. There's way less buyers. You could write an offer with conditions. It's just way more peaceful. So if the market gets overheated, don't be a dummy and offer 100K over list just because you want to move in the springtime. Just wait a little bit. And alternatively, if you are a seller and the market's declining, so it doesn't always go up. We do go into buyer's markets with falling prices. And this is happening right now with the condo market. We're actually seeing a lot of inventory pile up and the prices are dropping. And a problem that I've seen in the past is that you get sellers, they have the wrong price and they're a bit stubborn, and they'll try their price for a while, then adjust it little by little, and they chase the market down versus getting in front of the market and seeing where it's going and pricing it accordingly. Don't chase the market. It'll take you 6 months and multiple price reductions, and you'll sell for less had you had the right price originally. So you got to be very mindful in a buyer's market to have the right price, where the prices are going versus where they're at. People don't think that way though. They look at the historic prices, but you should look more logically at where the price is going and get ahead of that if you want to sell in a buyer's market. And the next point, not understanding the market conditions. So I could be showing a property to people from, say, Toronto, and they might ask me, hey, what are you thinking here? If we offer 50K over lists unconditionally, do you think that we'll get it? Like, hold on a second. Like, if it's just you with the offer, you can be under list with conditions. So You have to understand the market conditions and work with an agent who actually has your best interests in mind, because I imagine there are some agents out there who would probably give that advice, but that's probably the wrong thing to do. So it just depends on the market conditions. If it's a brand new listing and there's 10 offers, then maybe you have to act that way. But if it's just you and the market's balancing out, you could be spending a lot of money extra that you don't have to. And for sellers, you have to know the market as well, because if the market's kind of cooling off and there's a lot of inventory and you get an offer, usually the first offer is best. And if you don't take that offer, it could be costly. That buyer might go away and the next buyer might not come for a few months, and it might be way less. So that could cost you as well. Or if the market's red hot, you put your home on the market and you take the first offer, you might actually be leaving money on the table, because sometimes it's better to leave the presentation date for a day or so, let people come through the property, view it, and get more than one offer, let the buyers compete, and you might get more money in the end. So it just depends on how the market is. So you have to understand the market conditions, because you could be leaving money on the table. And the next point is assuming the seller isn't recording you during showings. So I find that the past couple of years, our market's been very hot, and a lot of sellers were actually recording people as we were viewing the property. So if you're talking about pricing and how much you love the property, you could be giving away your hand, and it could be costly. So be mindful of that when you're showing a property. Don't say too much. Next point, let's talk about renovating a property. Now, for the most part, I wouldn't go crazy renovating a property before you sell it, because the next buyer might do their own touches. And often it's not worth it. And I'll give you a good example. I had this property I listed this month in Cranston for $500,000. It was a tenant property. It was kind of beat up. It needed new carpet, it needed new paint, roof. It needed lots of stuff, lots of cosmetic stuff. I think the furnace was kind of old as well. There was a drippy tap. And the sellers were asking me, oh, should we fix it up? Is it going to sell like this? And my advice, sell it the way it is. Don't do anything to it. We actually got over list price for it, like one day on the market, so 1 or 2 days, I forget what it was. And for them to actually do the work to sell it, it wasn't worth it, because the next property up looked a lot better, and it was I think it sold for $515, and we got $505 for ours without doing anything whatsoever. So they could have put 10 grand into this property just to sell for maybe 10 grand more. It would just delay the process, cost them the money that they might get back. So in most situations, it's not worth it to spend a huge amount of money to renovate a property just to sell it. Now, when it comes to renovations, each situation is different, and sometimes it can be worth it, other times it can't be. So I would discuss with your agent if it is worthwhile, but I'd say for the most part, I wouldn't go crazy with it, because I just don't think you'll get the return, and it'll just delay the whole process. So be mindful of renovations. And the last point, which might be the most costly of all, is waiting for the market to crash before getting into it. And this can be very costly. And to give you a good example, I have this buyer that I've been working with for like 5 years, and a while back we were looking at properties, and at that time he could get into like an entry-level single-family home, and the prices kept going up and up and up, and he's been just waiting for the market to crash. So his budget, he went from a single-family home down to a townhouse, and now he's actually into like a bigger condo. So the market will do whatever it wants to do, and it's hard to predict it. And if you are waiting for the market to crash, you might just price yourself out of the market. And I think this might be the most costly mistake there is. All right, that's it. Now, these are just the mistakes that I've seen in the business. Feel free to write your own experiences in the comments. I love to hear them. And if you are thinking about making a move, I'd love to be a resource. You can give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. And if you go to the pinned comment, I've got a few guides for you, a buyer's guide, seller's guide, and a relocation guide, all free for download. And I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you on the next video.